Britain's discussions overseas have been making international news, and joining me now is Sky News political editor Adam Bolton. And Adam, welcome back.
Thanks for asking me.
One of the interesting aspects of this trip to me was Hillary Clinton's real interest in hitting the reset button, even this little gaffe with the prop with Russia, the reset button in relations with Russia. How's that going over in Europe?
I think people are pleased to see an effort by the Americans because, frankly, people are afraid of the Russians, particularly in Britain, where we, as you know, had a murder which we believe was instigated by the Kremlin. And so if America can find a way of dealing with Russia, if there's a summit, I think that would be welcome, particularly, of course, if that feeds into a more constructive approach towards Iran.
Now, one aspect, and you got exactly to my next point, one aspect of that supposedly is that the Obama administration has floated the idea, even in a private letter from President Obama to Russian President Medvedev, that if Russia gets Iran to stop its nuclear program, that the U.S. would stop its missile defense system in Eastern Europe. What do they think of that?
Well, there's clearly a trade-off there. I think in Western Europe, people are in favor of that. Eastern Europe, I think they're very much in favor of the missile system because they see that as a guarantee of U.S. protection. But I think there's a lot of skepticism about this, whether, in fact, the talks, which, as you know, Britain, Germany, and France have been having with Iran, have really progressed at all, and whether the Russians or indeed the Chinese want to help the West on this one and want to continue basically keeping it as a sore point.
But is there concern that in an effort to improve relations with Russia, that the U.S. and the new administration here in Washington might leave Eastern Europe and, countries like the Ukraine to the tender mercies of the Kremlin?
I think there's a little bit of insecurity there, and certainly people will be looking very closely to Joe Biden this week, his meetings with NATO leaders, and then the NATO summit at the beginning of April to see if there really is a strong alliance which also includes Eastern Europe, because, as you say, those countries on the border, Ukraine, do feel like bargaining chips potentially in all of this.
Finally, there was a fascinating flap this week over Prime Minister Brown's trip to Washington, the fact that there was no formal news conference with the president, a sense of imbalance in the gifts that Brown gave Obama as opposed to what Obama gave Brown. Is this serious? Is there a real feeling in London that somehow the Prime Minister was snubbed?
The problem is there's a real neuralgia about this so-called special relationship, and if people detect the remotest snub, then it gets blown up. And yeah, it has been widely reported in Britain that perhaps this relationship is not as close as the relationship between Tony Blair and, say, George Bush, or the relationship between Tony Blair and Bill Clinton before that. So there's a certain amount of anxiety, but on the other hand, the president, we understand, is coming to Britain, is going to meet the Queen, and I'm quite sure the red carpet will be out for him.
And the question is he going to give her DVDs as well? Very briefly, is there any explanation as to why Barack Obama would want to somehow treat Gordon Brown in a less than hospitable way?
Well, partly because Gordon Brown faces an election next year, which most people think he's not going to win. But also, I think we're just seeing a new White House settling in. The protocols of handling foreign visitors, let alone super sensitive ones like the Brits, perhaps haven't been fully sorted out.
Adam Bolton, Sky News, always interesting. Thank you, sir. Social networking sites like Facebook are extremely popular, but there are big risks with putting your profile online. We'll tell one story that hits close to home here at Fox.